and for Andy for leading that discussion. And next up, I'm very pleased to present Esteban Moro. He is a research scientist in connection science. He's an associate professor at the Universidad Carlos III de Madrid in Spain, and a member of the Joint Institute UC3M Santander on Financial Big Data. He researches the intersection of big data and computational social science with special attention to human dynamics, collective intelligence, social networks, and urban mobility and problems like viral marketing, natural disaster management, and economic segregation in cities. His work has been featured in The Atlantic, The Washington Post, and The Wall Street Journal. So thank you for joining on your weekend and so close to the holidays. We appreciate you taking the time to do this. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Esteban.
Thank you so much. I can see that you see me, and I'm gonna share my screen. The invitation, it's always a pleasure to show off, as the previous speaker was saying, show off our work. So I'm going to talk about a project that we did, which is called the Atlas of Inequality, which is in the exhibition, in the Macroscopes exhibition. This is a project that it's started a long time ago, and my background is not, I'm not a designer, and I'm not a professional visualizer. I'm a professor. So I'm going to explain a little bit the inception of the project, how we came up with the idea, and why we found out in the end that the visualization was the best way to actually talk about our project, and how we came up with the idea of creating the Atlas of Inequality. But I come from a very different perspective. I think for us, the most interesting part of visualization is understanding first what the data is about, what the data is telling us. And in the last years, there has been many changes in the way we monitor human behavior, and specifically, for example, in cities, there has been a total revolution of going from surveys, from asking people questions, a very small sample of people questions, to use mobile phone data. So that was the critical component of this project, is that we are gonna be able to serve society at a totally different scale, what we call here high resolution. So the basic idea of the project is about cities, and I know that you have your favorite probably report about the problems in cities, on the future of cities. This is actually a report that was done in April 2018 by the European Commission, in which they were singling out a number of problems that our cities have. There are estimations that by 2050, most of people in the world are going to be living in cities. Around 75% of the people are going to be living in cities, some of them more than 1 million person cities. And cities have a lot of problems, and most of them actually are intertwined. So, for example, environmental impact, aging, housing, social segregation, labor markets, new forms of governance and mobility. And obviously, in the last years, things like, for example, epidemic or other problems like, for example, labor markets has become much more prevalent in cities. So I guess that all of you know that if you were living in a city during the COVID, you have more than around 20% or 30% more chances of die of COVID than if you were living in a small village. So that cities, they are also the solution for most of our problems, because they're very efficient in terms of energy consumption, in terms of education opportunities, but they also have a lot of problems. So when we started thinking about the problem of segregation, which is the one that I singling out here, most of the literature talk about places. They talk about areas. They talk about neighborhoods. They talk about libraries. They talk about parks. They talk about places in the cities. By the way, the city that you have in the background, some of you recognize, is Barcelona. So everybody talks about how to design places, buildings. I mean, talk about bricks, talk about roads, talk about things. But one of the key components of our research and our group is that we are more interested in behavior. So what we found, and I'm going to try to convince you, is that in the data, is that most of what is happening in the city is a relationship between places and behavior. And the key component of our visualization is how to incorporate not only a visualization of places, which is great, but also how we can incorporate places and the behavior in the same visualization. And the key idea is this one, is that when you talk about segregation, most people will show you this plot. This plot is actually the census block groups in the Boston area. I mean, this is the Boston. I mean, like some probably you can recognize the Charles River in the middle, also the sea on the right-hand side. And the colors indicate the income of the people living there. So this is basically how people see segregation in our cities. And there are many visualizations like this. And this is not really a very fancy visualization, but it's just a color plate showing how income is really unevenly distributed, let's say, by the place where people live. And this is basically what policymakers and even, for example, the news media, the news is reporting segregation. A lot of researchers were reporting segregation. And the idea is that every one of us is a polygon. Basically, you are described by the polygon that you live, and segregation basically is affecting you by the polygon that you are living in. But what we found when we are analyzing this mobile phone data, there's the data that I'm going to comment a little bit about the data that was used in the visualization. The data that we use comes from mobile phone applications. So we see basically when people move around in the city, where do they go, and what do they do? Okay. And this is the data. The data comes from different companies, but basically we have 5% of the population. So we know the trajectories of people through the day and when they stop, when they move, etc. And the resolution is incredible because we can see when people are actually stopping at a Starbucks or when people are actually going to the workplace. Okay, we have a lot of data, and this data is massive. So it took us actually a lot of time to convert this data into insights because this data is obviously collected for other purposes, and we use it for understanding how people in the cities are living. And one of the things that we found immediately was this: 75% of the people that you see every day in the city comes from more than 15 kilometers away from you. So that means that most of the people that you interact with, and most of the people that you couldn't be interacting with in the future, actually lives very far away from you, really far away from you. I'm not saying that it's not the same neighborhood. It's actually even different city. And this is in the US, but we have also tested this hypothesis in other countries. And even though the number is a little bit smaller, the pattern is always there. The most of the people that you interact or encounter every day actually is not living in your neighborhood. So this is the other thing that we found is actually in the United States, people travel a lot. For example, to get to the groceries, typically people travel 4 kilometers. To go to food, they travel 6 kilometers. To go to the workplace, they travel even 15 kilometers. So that means that this part of the data is telling us that most of the things that are happening in the city are not related to neighborhoods, are related to workplaces, recreational areas, or shopping areas, but it's not related to specifically what you live. Okay. Let me show you the data. This is actually the data. This is the Boston area, and you can see this is the Boston area. This is the Charles River, and this is the sea. And you can see dots here. These dots are a person, a mobile phone, when the mobile phone stops in a particular place. And the colors indicate the economic background of this person. We basically use only 4 colors, going from red to blue, red meaning the low income group, and blue being the high income group. You also have the time of the day here downstairs in the right bottom part. And what you're going to see is basically a typical day in Boston. You can see here the airport in this part and the right-hand side, etc. Okay, so let me show you a particular day. So I'm going to start with midnight. Okay, this is basically the 0 hours. And what you can see at 0 hours is that there is a lot of red dots with red dots, blue dots with blue dots, because people are staying home. So basically the income is more or less the same. But when the morning starts, what you can see is that basically people from very different backgrounds get together in places like, for example, the financial center, the airport, or even the medical center, which is down in the left bottom. Okay. Other areas are actually still red. All of them are red or still blue, meaning that most of the people there are coming from the same community. Okay. So the key idea that we wanted to understand is what are these areas in which people get together? Okay. And basically there are encounters between people of different economic backgrounds. And what is working towards that? And what are the areas in which these things doesn't happen? with the key idea, obviously, that we want to understand these patterns, and we want to anticipate what would be, for example, future interventions in the city, or what is the actual reason why people get together in places where the visitors have different backgrounds, different income backgrounds. So the question is, again, where and the why this is happening. Let me tell you something that we found in the data. There were like a couple of things that we found in the data. The first one, oh, sorry, let me explain you a little bit more the data. Basically, the data, as I said, we basically identify where people will stop for a while. For example, this person was traveling and this person stops, for example, in a particular venue, pizza place. And then we basically, what we do is we compute all the people that stop in the same place, like this pizza place, by group of incomes. And then we created what we call the inequality index of that place, which is basically like measuring the Gini coefficient of that place. How unequal is the people that are going to that place? Okay, a place which is very unequal is only visited by one income group. A place which is very equal is visited by all income groups in the city. Okay, so for example, in this case, this pie restaurant and this pie pizza place is visited mostly by high income people. So it's a little bit unequal. Okay. Okay, so we found couple of things that, and then with that we can make, as I said, we can make this index of inequality. Okay, so a place which is very equal is visited by all places, by all groups. Sorry, a place which is very unequal is only visited by one group of income. Okay, we found a couple of things when we started looking at the data. We found a couple of things which were amazing. The first one is that you can just cross the street and you can be in a different place in terms of segregation. So the places which are segregated are not far away. So you don't have to travel to the low-income communities in your city, or you don't have to go to the high-income communities in your city. You just have to cross the street to go to a place that is totally different in terms of the diversity of people that visit that place. This is a personal story. These are the two places that I go usually for lunch. Well, not too much, but around the Media Lab. These two places, which are the Clover Food Lab and the Chipotle, are separated by 50 meters, okay? And they are totally different in terms of segregation. One is visited only by high-income people, and the other one is visited by everybody, okay? And it's not the price. You might think, okay, the price is basically telling you what is happening here. It's not the price, because you can get a sandwich in both places below $15. So that's one of the things that we wanted to communicate in the visualization, is that there's a unique high resolution component of segregation, which is that if you cross the street, you can be in a totally different place. Okay, so this is what was the key components of our visualization. We wanted to convey this message that the unit, the geographical unit, which is important, is the size of the street, even the block of the street, or even the place. The second thing that we found, which is the other thing that we found in the data that we wanted to use in the visualization, was that what you do matters. Meaning that if you, for example, aggregate the segregation that you observe by place, by type of place, each of the dots that you see here is basically a type of place in the United States, and the vertical dimension is the segregation of those places, and the horizontal dimension is the distance that you have to travel to get to places. What you can see is that depending on how much time you spend in different places in your life, you're gonna get different segregation. For example, if you spend a lot of time in local places like elementary school, middle school, grocery, churches, etc., you are gonna be segregated much more than the average. If you travel a lot, for example, you go to convention centers or exhibits, or for example, you go to science museums, then you are gonna be less segregated. Also, if you work, for example, in an office, you're going to be much less segregated than you work in a factory, in a warehouse. For example, if you work in a warehouse, you are as segregated as you were in elementary school. Okay, so that's the other idea that we need to convey, that the things that you do in the city matter. Okay, for your segregation. So if you like a lot, for example, entertainment, you like a lot of restaurants, and you travel a lot, you are less segregated than you have, for example, kids and spend most of your time in your day. Okay. It's even so that, for example, the type of food that you like segregates you more or less. And you can see here, for example, the same plot that I was showing before by this time is just by the type of food, the type of restaurant. So you can see, for example, all the Asian food is below average, and all the fast food is actually above average. So that means that if you like fast food, or I don't know, you don't have other opportunities to have other food, most likely you are going to be much more segregated. Okay, so these are the two ideas that we wanted to put together in the visualization. One is that the geographical dimension matters. The place is the actually important place, the important unit. And the other one was that the things that you do matter. So this is why we put together the Atlas of Inequality, which is a project in which we wanted to show this data. When we started thinking about this, I'm not a professional visualizer. We started to think about this. It's like we have many ideas, but I'm gonna just show you what we come up with, which is a visualization that allows people to understand these two dimensions of the project, that the high spatial resolution of the data, but also the categories matter. Okay, so this is the visualization. Basically, we have 11 cities in the United States. You can select your city. Let me just show you the video. You can select the city, for example, this time New York. It explains you a little bit how we transformed this mobile phone data into the things that you're going to observe. And this is the visualization. Each of the points that you see here is a place, is basically a bus stop, it's a shop, it's a restaurant, it's an office, it's a park, etc. And when you click on each of the points, you see the distribution of the people that visit that place, along with an index that we call the inequality index. 0 again means that the place is visited by everybody in the city, meaning all the income groups, and red means that it's visited just by one income group. Okay, and you can play with this data. So you can see the visualization is actually done at the level of places. This was actually a discussion that we have about what was we have a compromise between privacy and also the relevance of the visualization, because we wanted to show that even crossing the street, you can go to a very different place, but at the same time, we are using names. We're using commercial names here. So we have a lot of ideas about how to do this. In the end, we came up with this solution that we are going to use only non-sensitive places, but we are going to use actually places, things that are happening at the level of the street. The other thing that you can do is that you can select on the right-hand side the type of places that you like, whether they're professional, food, shops, services, just to show you that if you select only, for example, schools, then you will get more segregated places than the others. And also, we introduced something that took us a while, which is that you can search by address. That's the most expensive part of the visualization, actually, in terms of money. You can search for address and you can actually go to your place. You can look around the places that you like, etc. Okay. So again, we started the visualization with because we wanted to incorporate two ideas: the idea of this geographical fine-grained, let's say, scale, and the other one is the categories, and this is the visualization that we came up with. We are extending the visualization to other countries right now and to the whole US, but it's going to take a while because we are actually, COVID happened, basically. This visualization was done in 2019, and then COVID happened, and then we moved all our research to another aspect of the mobility data, which is where people are getting together in which places to understand COVID. Okay. So this is for example, what you see in the New York area. As you can see, this is Manhattan, and you can see Central Park and all the neighborhoods here. And again, yeah, I mean, the project has been very successful. We typically have thousands of visitors per week. And the most amazing thing was when we launched the visualization, because well, I will tell you in a minute. Our intention was to use this visualization as a support for showing these two components of the segregation in cities, which is one is that it's happening at the level of the street, and the other one, it depends on the categories. But then everything blew up, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about why that. So I'm not a visualizer, so I'm not paid by doing this. So the question is whether I wanted to do this visualization. And one of the key things is that we really believe that our visualization and our research changed the way we see segregation in cities. The segregation in cities was supposed to be more like a residential problem, like we have to actually put money in affordable housing, in bus programs for schools, in giving, for example, subsidies to people to shop in different stores, etc. And that is great. Don't get me wrong; these programs are amazing, and they help a lot in how we can tame a little bit the problem of segregation in our cities. But our research shows that it has a huge behavioral component. So in order to understand that behavioral component, we need to reframe the problem of segregation by going from, let's say, the polygons, the areas, the neighborhoods, to places. And places are much more attached to behavior because the places are, for example, the typical place that you like for coffee. This is your place. So this is more attached to behavior. So we wanted to go from the visualization that is just about where people live to a visualization about where people go. Okay. And the other thing that we wanted to do is more storytelling of our research. I mean, every time we talk to people that were working on in the city halls or also in marketing companies, for example, and also in other agencies, they were always telling us that we needed a little bit more of storytelling because well, this is not something that is quite obvious, that we wanted to give people some ideas, some narratives about why this matters to their life. So this is why we wanted to create this visualization, because you can actually go to your favorite places. People can actually go and check their own favorite places, like, for example, I did. Okay. We started with the idea that visualization was just to show the results or the outcomes of the paper. But as I said, I'm going to talk about a little bit more about the stories that happen after that. And the other thing is that our first initial attempt to the visualization was very sciencey, very research oriented. And talking to the people that help us build the visualization, we actually transform that visualization, that initial idea of the visualization, into something which was more simpler, really, really simple. Like, what was the unit that we wanted to describe? What is the key messages that we wanted people to understand, and what it was the stand of the data and the ideas that we wanted to visualize. Okay, so as I said, I'm not a professional visualizer, as opposed to the first speaker in this session. We typically don't work on that. So the way we did it is that we actually partnered with professionals. This was done actually with a company which is called Carton, and they are graphic designers that help us transform everything that you see. Transform the data and our initial visualizations in the Carton. We also have the initial idea of using other fancy visualizations like 3D or other kinds of network data, how things were related, how people traveling around, etc. But everybody understands a map. This is actually something that in our projects, I work, most of our projects are actually related to urban environments. So this is actually amazing. It's amazing for me to find that if you plot a scatter plot, or if you plot, for example, a bar chart, most people will have problems understanding what is going on. But if you visualize things in a map, everybody understands a map. Everybody can navigate a map, can search for information in a map. So when we started the visualization, even though we have fancy ideas about how to simulate behavior, how to explain behavior of people, etc., we ended up having the most useful and most complex visualization that people understand, which is a map. The other thing that we have is that we have a lot of illegal problems. When we started of course, this data is very sensitive, and the visualization, because we wanted to explain things that were happening at the street level, we were going to use names. We were going to use names of businesses. We were going to use names of places, and even, for example, buildings. So that created a tension between the legal our legal counselors at the MIT and us, because we wanted to actually give this perspective to the visualization. So we have to be sure that we have all parts in place, especially from the legal perspective, to do that. In the end, we make the decision to use the actual names of the places, because this is information which is public. And then we launched the Atlas of Inequality with some, I don't know, tiptoeing a little bit at the beginning, checking with friends and family and companies. We call it friends and family to also the sponsors of the Media Lab at the MIT to see how was the reception. And I have to say that the reception was amazing. I mean, we got emails from the owners of the businesses. We got a lot of them actually that help us a lot to shape much better the Atlas of Inequality. A lot of people were telling us things about, hey, I didn't know my store was desegregated. I'm going to do something about it. Can you check back in 6 months to see how is this going? We also have developers that were actually coming to us and say, we didn't know that this area is like this. We're gonna want to check again our plans, etc. The reception was really amazing, and I think that the key reason why the reception was amazing, and we get so many emails from people, actually, not even store owners, but even, for example, patrons, people that were visiting restaurants, and they were saying, "Hey, I knew that this place was special. Now you're telling me that it's actually because it's very diverse." And that was the most amazing thing that we spent like 3 months reshaping a little bit more the storytelling and the way we frame the visualization to accommodating some of these comments and activities. We didn't get it actually any negative comment. Everybody was actually very positive, and I think the reason was that we were make accessible the results to other people. So this is the Atlas of Inequality. I hope you like it. And once again, if you're interested, the address for the Atlas of Inequality is inequality.media.mit.edu. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Esteban. It's wonderful to hear the stories that people were excited about it and interested in it, and perhaps surprised by what they found. We really like to highlight the impact that these macroscopes have on people, and to tell stories about that. And so it's great to hear that is having a tangible impact, and that your work is maybe causing people to rethink or readjust how they act. So thank you.